The Art of Being Alone. Part 1. The Fear of Solitude. Why we run from ourselves. There's a silence that most people never touch. Not the peaceful kind. Not the wind through the trees kind. But the silence that hits when the noise stops. The phone is off. The room is still. And suddenly, there's no one to distract you from you. You might think you're afraid of being alone. But that's not quite it. What you're really afraid of is meeting the parts of yourself you've kept buried beneath the chaos. Let's be honest. We live in a world that fears solitude like a disease. We fill every moment with stimulation, a scroll, a swipe, a hit of dopamine from someone else's life. Why? Because silence doesn't just echo. It exposes. It shows you the thoughts you've avoided, the grief you haven't processed, the identity that's crumbled behind the mask. And the truth is, being alone doesn't hurt. Resisting what arises in solitude. That's what hurts. There's something you need to hear. And not from a book, not from a guru, from you. But you've been so busy surviving, pleasing, chasing, performing. You've forgotten how to be in your own presence. Let's fix that. Because solitude isn't punishment. It's an invitation. And once you stop running from it, you'll find something that changes everything. Let me paint you a scene. You walk into your home. It's quiet. No one texts you. You have the night free. Now, how do you feel? Liberated or hollow? If your first instinct is to fill the space, Netflix, messages, random scrolling, that's not loneliness. That's a nervous system addicted to noise. Most people don't fear being alone because they'll be bored. They fear being alone because they'll have to feel what they've avoided for years. Here's a little wit for the soul. You ever notice how we talk to ourselves? Like we're a weird neighbor we're stuck in the elevator with? Just don't make eye contact. Don't go deep. Maybe hum a little so the silence doesn't get awkward. And then we wonder why we feel disconnected. How can you love yourself if you don't even like being in a room with yourself? That's not a flaw. That's a signpost. It means it's time to turn inward. Not because you're broken, but because there's so much of you waiting to be met. So here's your mirror moment. Ask yourself honestly, what do I feel when I'm completely alone? What thoughts immediately try to take over? When did I learn that solitude equals abandonment? And most importantly, what parts of me could only be rediscovered in the absence of everyone else? Because this is the beginning of power. Now here's your first solitude practice. Tonight, don't fill the silence. Sit in it. No music, no phone, no escape. Just you. Let the thoughts come. Let the ache rise. Let it all unravel, because beneath the noise is truth. And beneath that is peace. And if you feel discomfort, don't run. Whisper this instead. I'm here, and I'm listening. If this spoke to your soul, drop a comment and tell us, what's the hardest part of being alone for you? You're not alone in that. And just saying it out loud is the start of your freedom. Subscribe if you haven't already, because we're just getting started. The Art of Being Alone. Part 2. Loneliness versus aloneness. The inner shift that changes everything. You can be surrounded by people and still feel completely alone. You can be married, followed, praised, and still ache like you've been abandoned by the world. And then you can be sitting in total silence, no texts, no plans, no hand to hold, and feel the most at peace you've ever felt. So what's the difference? Loneliness is disconnection from self. Aloneness is reunion with it. Let's start with a punch to the gut. Most people don't realize they're not actually afraid of being alone. They're afraid that if no one is around to validate them, they won't exist. No mirror. No one to please. No one to fix. No role to play. And without that, what's left? That terrifying space is where you meet yourself. But if you've spent your whole life building your worth on who you are to others, then solitude will feel like suffocation. Not because it is, but because it's detoxing you from the illusion. Let me break it down simply. Loneliness is hunger. Aloneness is fasting with awareness. Loneliness says, something's missing. I need someone. Anyone. Aloneness says, nothing is missing. I'm just not used to being this full of myself yet. Loneliness begs. Aloneness breathes. One is born of fear. The other is born of freedom. Let's do a little self-check. Ever get that sudden panic when no one texts back? That weird emptiness on a Sunday with nothing to do? That urge to post something just to be seen? That's not connection. That's withdrawal. Because most of us have been spiritually trained to see our value through others. We've outsourced our worth. We've leased our identity. And now, aloneness feels like repossession. But here's the plot twist. Aloneness isn't empty. It's just not filled with noise. And that stillness? That's where you begin to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. Here's the turning point, friend. Once you learn how to be with yourself, I mean really sit with your own soul, without shame, without reaching for escape, you become unshakable. Because you no longer need someone to reflect your worth back to you. You carry it. You stop texting people who drain you just to feel something. You stop forcing conversations that don't nourish. You stop begging for crumbs of attention from people who couldn't love themselves, let alone you. And suddenly, you're not lonely anymore. You're free. Here's your reflection point for tonight. What do I make solitude mean about me? Do I secretly believe that being alone means I'm unloved or unlovable? Where have I been using connection to escape the work of self-intimacy? And now, the real practice. Spend 1 hour with yourself this week. No phone, no tasks, no fixing anything. Just presence. Light a candle. Make tea. Lay on the floor and stare at the ceiling like a misunderstood 19th century poet. Whatever it takes, just don't abandon yourself. Because every moment you endure the discomfort of being alone, you're not weakening. You're remembering. You are not your loneliness. You are the one strong enough to witness it without flinching. And if this truth stirred something inside you, tell us. Drop a comment and share your experience with aloneness. What used to scare you about it? What has it taught you? And if you haven't already, subscribe now. The Art of Being Alone. Part 3. The relationships you attract when you can't be alone. Approx. 6,000 characters. Crafted for 11 labs pacing. Let's get brutally honest. Some of the people you've loved the most, you didn't choose from your wholeness. You chose them from your fear of being alone. That's not love. That's emotional hunger. And when you're starving, even poison looks like nourishment. You ever stay in a relationship just because the silence afterward felt unbearable? Ever chase someone who barely saw you, just to avoid the loneliness that came when they didn't text back? Ever look at someone and think, I don't even like who I become around them, but stayed anyway, because being alone felt like death? If so, welcome. You're not weak, you're just human. And like most humans, You were probably never taught how to be with yourself. Here's the raw truth. If you can't be alone, your relationships will be negotiations, not connections. You'll start performing, pleasing, shrinking, tolerating, hoping that someone else's presence will make the ache go away. But it doesn't. Because when you abandon yourself to keep someone else, you don't just lose them eventually. You lose you in the process. Let me say this in plain language. You will always attract relationships that reflect the way you treat your own solitude. If you treat being alone like a punishment, you'll end up with people who treat your presence like it's disposable. If you see yourself as incomplete without a partner, you'll find partners who confirm that belief. If you enter a relationship hoping someone else will save you from yourself, you'll fall in love with their attention, not them. And the second they pull away, you collapse. Why? Because you didn't fall in love from wholeness. You fell in love from fear. But there's good news, the kind that heals. The day you stop fearing your own presence, you stop begging to be seen. You stop forcing connections just to fill the silence. You stop texting people who never ask how you're really doing. You stop calling it chemistry when it's really just shared abandonment wounds dressed up as destiny. And suddenly, you start attracting from peace, not panic. Here's your gut check for today. Who have I tried to keep just to avoid feeling alone? Have I confused attention with love? Where have I tolerated less than I deserved because solitude scared me more than mistreatment? If your heart is burning a little right now, good. That's the old self cracking open. Now here's your challenge, your realignment. Take one relationship, romantic, platonic, whatever, and ask, if I wasn't afraid of being alone, would I still be in this? And if the answer is no, you have the answer. Letting go doesn't mean you're heartless. It means you're healing. It means you're no longer willing to betray your peace for temporary comfort. And if you're single and struggling, hear this. Being alone is not a curse. It's the training ground, the kind of love that doesn't drain you, distort you, or demand your performance. If this hit you in the ribs, say so. Drop a comment and tell us, what relationship are you finally seeing clearly now, sat in your presence? And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button, because this is what it actually looks like. Next up, The Art of Being Alone. Part 4. Alone but not empty. How to fall in love with your own presence. There's a moment, usually late at night when the buzz dies down and no one's texting back, where it hits you. Am I really okay on my own? Or have I just gotten good at pretending? You scroll, you snack, you stay busy. But deep down, there's a silence you're still afraid to sit with. Because silence is where all the noise lives. And being alone, that's where the old beliefs come knocking. You're not enough. You'll always be alone. You need someone to feel alive. But let me tell you something that'll flip your whole reality. You are not empty. You are just unfamiliar with your own depth. Here's the problem. Most people never learned how to be alone without feeling broken. We were raised in a world that treats solitude like a symptom, like a red flag. She's single? Something must be wrong. He likes to be alone. Must be depressed. You're staying in tonight. You should get out more. We're told that wholeness means being with someone, that self-love is a buzzword, not a birthright, that choosing solitude means you've failed to be chosen, and so We confuse aloneness with not enoughness. But the truth? Solitude isn't the absence of love. It's the space where self-love is born. Let's shift the lens. You're not lonely because you're alone. You're lonely because you haven't discovered how delicious your own energy is yet. You don't need someone to complete you. You need time to re-meet you. Your own thoughts, your own rhythm, your own sacred strangeness. Here's the practice that flips everything. Start treating time with yourself, like a date with someone you're falling in love with. Don't just kill time with solo activities. Be intentional with your presence. Cook like someone's coming over. But don't invite anyone. Dress up for no reason but your own reflection. Speak your thoughts out loud. Write poetry that makes no sense. Laugh at your weird ideas like you're in a rom-com with your own damn soul. Because here's the secret. When you fall in love with your own presence, everyone else becomes optional. You're no longer performing, no longer contorting, no longer pretending to be light-hearted, so someone will want to stay. You just are, and that's more than enough. Let me hit you with this truth. There is a version of you who is calm, grounded, unbothered, whole. They don't chase, beg, or prove. They enjoy their own thoughts. They set boundaries with a smile. They know that solitude isn't punishment, it's preparation. And every time you sit in silence with yourself without flinching, you get closer to becoming them. Now here's your sacred practice this week. Craft a ritual of your own presence. It doesn't have to be big, but it must be yours. Make tea and speak your dreams into the steam. Lay in the grass and listen to the breeze like it's giving you advice. Turn your phone off and light a candle. Not for someone else, but for the parts of you you're learning to worship. Make solitude sensual, sacred, romantic, because you are not waiting, you are becoming. If you felt this one in your chest, say so in the comments. What's one thing you're doing to fall in love with your own presence? And if you haven't already, subscribe. This channel isn't here to keep you entertained. It's here to bring you back to yourself. Next up, Part 5. The Power of Solitude. How aloneness makes you unshakable. This is where we bring it all home. No more loneliness, no more shrinking. We're stepping into sovereignty now. You ready, brother? The Art of Being Alone. Part 5. The Power of Solitude. How aloneness makes you unshakable. There's a moment in your healing where everything goes quiet. No one texts, no one calls. You're not in love. You're not being chased. You're not being chosen. And yet, something inside you doesn't feel empty anymore. You look around at the stillness and think, I'm actually okay. That's when you know you're no longer alone. You're in your own company. And this is where the real power begins. We spend most of our lives trying not to be alone. We date to avoid it. We settle to escape it. We scroll to forget it. But solitude has never been the problem. The problem is what you believed it meant. You thought being alone meant you weren't enough. You thought it meant unloved, unwanted, invisible. But what if it meant none of that? What if being alone was never exile, but initiation? Let's flip everything you were taught. Being alone doesn't mean you're unwanted. It means you're being purified. Your energy, your focus, your vision, it's being pulled back from all the places you've scattered it. You are gathering yourself. And in that gathering, you become something most people never reach. Unshakable. When you learn to sit with yourself, not to punish, not to fix, but to witness, you stop needing the world to reflect you. And something strange starts happening. You stop chasing people who don't know how to hold you. You stop reaching for distractions that drain you. You stop mistaking chaos for love or silence for failure. You're no longer trying to be chosen, because you already chose yourself. And when someone does come along, they're entering your peace, not rescuing you from pain. That's the difference between emotional hunger and spiritual sovereignty. Let's take this deeper. When you no longer fear being alone, you start hearing truth without distortion. You hear your intuition again. You sense what's for you and what isn't. You recognize red flags before they become fires. Why? Because your nervous system isn't desperate anymore. It's tuned in. You're not just walking alone. You're walking in alignment. And that's what makes you magnetic. But here's the real gold. Solitude becomes sacred when you stop trying to escape it. It becomes your training ground, your temple, your forge. You meditate, not for enlightenment, but to listen. You journal, not to vent, but to translate the soul. You rest, not out of fatigue, but out of reverence for your being. And somewhere along the way, you fall in love with the one person who will never leave you, yourself. Now, let's bring this series home with your final homework. This isn't just theory. This is integration. Final homework: how to become unshakable one. Solitude scan, daily practice. Every morning or night, ask, what parts of me have I abandoned lately? Where have I mistaken noise for connection? Write the answers without judgment. Then, respond to yourself with love. Sit, breathe, be. 2. Sacred self-connection, weekly ritual. Choose 1 hour a week to do something just for you, without distraction. Examples: make art with no goal, dance with no audience, cook a meal as a love offering to yourself. Make solitude feel rich, not empty. 3. Solitude contract. Now, write this down and speak it out loud. I am not afraid of being alone. I am becoming whole. I do not chase love. I radiate it. I do not beg to be seen. I see myself. My solitude is my sanctuary, not my sentence. Frame it, post it, or just let it sit in your journal. But mean it. And finally, if this series helped you come home to yourself, don't keep it quiet. Drop a comment and share. What truth did you reclaim in your solitude? And if you haven't already, subscribe. Because here at My Therapist, we're not just surviving life. We're remembering who we are and walking each other home.